The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the house on Caprock Canyon Avenue. Inside, a chilling silence hung in the air. It was a silence that spoke of a life extinguished. The life of 73-year-old Yunjin. He lay still, his lifeless eyes staring into the abyss. At first glance it seemed a peaceful passing. The paramedics saw no immediate signs of struggle. His face, frozen in an eternal slumber, betrayed no hint of pain, just the quiet stillness of death. Or so they thought. A call had been placed earlier, a report of an elderly man found unresponsive. It seemed a routine call, a somber but familiar occurrence in their line of work. Little did they know, a darkness had descended upon this quiet home, a darkness that whispered of something far more sinister than a natural death. The police arrived. The seasoned paramedics surveyed the scene. Something felt amiss. An unsettling feeling gnawed at their instincts. The stillness felt too heavy, the silence too profound. There was an eerie aura that permeated the air. It was as if the walls themselves whispered tales of a tragedy. Their unease prompted a call to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. It was a precautionary measure, a way to quell the nagging doubts. Officers arrived, their trained eyes scanning the environment. The atmosphere was heavy with an unspoken tension. The responding officers, veterans of countless similar calls, felt a chill crawl down their spines. The scene, seemingly mundane, held an undercurrent of wrongness. Their instincts, honed through years of experience, screamed that something was terribly amiss. This was no ordinary death. This was a crime scene. The sharp, sterile lights of the homicide unit cut through the growing darkness outside. Detectives, their faces grim, meticulously combed through the house on Caprock Canyon Avenue. Every surface, every shadow, held the potential to whisper the victim's final story. The evidence, though subtle, painted a chilling picture. A single gunshot wound marred the back of Yunjin's head. A 9mm handgun, cold and metallic, lay discarded near his outstretched hand. It was a scene of cold, calculated violence masquerading as a peaceful passing. The detectives worked with a practiced efficiency, their movements a silent ballet of investigation. They dusted for fingerprints, photographed the scene, and bagged every piece of potential evidence. The house, once filled with life, was now a silent testament to a heinous act. As darkness fell, a figure emerged from the shadows, moving with a sense of purpose yet shrouded in mystery. The night seemed to hold its breath, as if anticipating the revelation that was about to unfold. Timothy Law, the 35-year-old son of the deceased, returned to the scene of the crime. His steps were heavy, burdened with the weight of his actions and the memories of what had transpired. His eyes were wide, his demeanor erratic. The fear and confusion etched on his face told a story of inner turmoil and conflict. He mumbled incoherently, his words a jumbled mix of fear and delusion. Each sentence was a struggle, as if he was fighting against an unseen force within his mind. "I did it. I had to," he stammered, his voice a hollow rasp. "They told me to." His confession was chilling, a glimpse into a mind unraveling under the weight of its own delusions. The detectives listened intently, their faces impassive as Timothy's words tumbled out in a torrent of madness. Each word seemed to pull them deeper into the labyrinth of his fractured psyche. He spoke of aliens, of a mission to save a worker trapped in his father's body. His narrative was bizarre, yet he recounted it with a conviction that was both unsettling and tragic. His words were the ramblings of a madman, yet they held a terrifying truth. The intensity in his eyes suggested he truly believed every word he said. Timothy Law had killed his own father. The crime scene was a stark reminder of the horror that had unfolded, a place where reality and delusion had collided with deadly consequences. Driven by delusions, he had committed the unthinkable. His mind, twisted by fear and paranoia, had led him down a path of no return. The detectives, hardened by years of dealing with the darkest side of humanity, were nonetheless shaken by the sheer insanity of his confession. It was a case that would haunt them, a reminder of the fragile line between sanity and madness. Timothy's descent into madness. Timothy was once a man of reason, a person who lived a normal life in the bustling city. But something changed, something dark and unexplainable. His descent into madness was gradual, almost imperceptible at first, but soon it became a terrifying spiral. Aliens and a chilling mission. Timothy began to speak of encounters with beings from another world. He described their ships, their technology, and their ominous presence in the night sky. These weren't just fleeting visions, they were vivid, detailed experiences that consumed his thoughts. Timothy's words painted a disturbing picture of a mind untethered from reality. He would sit for hours, recounting his experiences with an intensity that was both captivating and alarming. His eyes, once full of life, now reflected a deep, unsettling obsession. He spoke of feeling like he was on a different planet, a place where the familiar rules of society no longer applied. In this alien world, he was a stranger, lost and confused, trying to make sense of the bizarre and surreal landscapes that surrounded him. He claimed that aliens had communicated with him, their voices a constant presence in his head. These voices, he said, were not just random noises but clear, articulate messages that guided his every move. They told him things, revealed secrets about the universe and his place within it. These extraterrestrial beings, he insisted, had given him a crucial mission: to eliminate a dangerous imposter who had taken on the form of his father. This mission, he believed, was of utmost importance, a task that only he could accomplish. He described a worker, its face a chilling replica of Yunjin laws. This worker, according to Timothy, was not human but a sophisticated mimic designed to infiltrate and destroy. This entity, he believed, posed a grave threat to humanity. Timothy was convinced that this imposter was part of a larger conspiracy, a plot to undermine and control the human race. The detectives listened with a mixture of horror and pity. They had heard many strange stories in their careers, but Timothy's tale was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was a blend of science fiction and horror, a narrative that was both fascinating and deeply troubling. It was clear that Timothy was deeply troubled, his mind a labyrinth of paranoia and delusion. His once rational thoughts were now a chaotic mix of fear and fantasy, a testament to the fragile nature of the human psyche. He had constructed an elaborate fantasy, a reality where murder was not only justified but necessary. In his mind, he was a hero, a savior tasked with protecting humanity from an unseen and insidious threat. But to the outside world, Timothy was a man lost in his own delusions, a tragic figure on a path to destruction. The weight of the law falls upon Timothy Law, a man whose life was about to be irrevocably changed by the relentless march of justice. The wheels of justice began to turn, grinding inexorably towards their grim conclusion. Each tick of the clock echoed the inevitability of his fate. Timothy Law was arrested and charged with open murder with a deadly weapon. The arrest was swift, the charges severe. The evidence was stacked against him, his confession, a chilling admission of guilt that left little room for doubt. The murder weapon found at the scene, a knife still stained with the victim's blood, was a damning piece of evidence. And the lack of any other plausible suspect only tightened the noose around Timothy's neck. The detectives had done their job well. He was denied bail, deemed a danger to himself and others. The judge's gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the courtroom. He was remanded to the cold, sterile confines of the Clark County Detention Center. The clang of the cell door closing behind him was a sound he would come to know all too well. There, surrounded by concrete and steel, he awaited his fate, each day blending into the next, a monotonous march towards his trial. His eyes, once filled with a manic energy, now held a vacant stare. The reality of his situation had drained him of all vitality. The legal system, for all its flaws, aimed to provide a fair trial. Lawyers prepared their cases, the judge presided with an air of solemn duty. Yet, in the face of such overwhelming evidence and a confession tainted by madness, the outcome seemed inevitable. The jury's faces were grim, the judge's gavel heavy. Timothy Law, the man who claimed aliens made him do it, was facing a stark reality life behind bars. His story, a tragic tale of delusion and violence, was now a part of the annals of criminal history. Section 7. A mother's anguish, a son's mental illness, a family shattered. In the wake of the tragedy, Timothy's mother grappled with an unbearable grief. She had lost her husband, her life partner, in the most horrific way imaginable. But her sorrow was compounded by a deep sense of helplessness. Her son, the one who had taken her husband's life, was not a cold-blooded killer, but a victim of his own troubled mind. She had known of his struggles with mental illness, had tried desperately to get him the help he so desperately needed. Now, as she prepared to bury her husband, she was also facing the agonizing reality of her son's fate. Her heart ached for the life her son would never have, the future stolen by the shadows that clouded his mind. A life tragically cut short. Murder confirmed. The official report from the Clark County Coroner's Office confirmed the grim truth. Yunjin Law had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. The manner of death was officially ruled a homicide. The report, a cold and clinical document, did little to soothe the raw grief of the family. It was a stark reminder of the brutal reality of Yunjin's death. His life, filled with hopes, dreams and love, had been cut tragically short by an act of senseless violence. A community grapples with the unthinkable. The murder sent shockwaves through the quiet community of Caprock Canyon Avenue. Neighbors, once accustomed to the sounds of children playing and lawnmowers humming, were now haunted by the echo of a gunshot. The familiar rhythm of life had been shattered, replaced by a chilling silence. The tragedy served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life, the ever-present potential for darkness to encroach upon even the most peaceful of neighborhoods. As the community mourned the loss of Yunjin, they also grappled with the unsettling knowledge that such a horrific act could happen in their midst.